Hey, help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also hit that like button to subscribe if you want more Cavs-focused content. The Cavs lost 3 games in a row. Now the Cavs have won 3 games in a row in decisive fashion, right? They lost to the Rockets. No, 4 games in a row, my bad. They lost to the Rockets. That was the last game the Cavs lost. They lost by 4 points, right? They had that stretch where they lost a bunch of one-score games. The Rockets, the 76ers, the Rockets again. And then they came back and they beat the Pistons by almost 20 points. Then they come back and they beat the Heat by 20. And then they blow out the Atlanta Hawks. And then what they did today with the Dallas Mavericks, I mean, to be fair, Dallas, everybody's hurt or traded, right? The Dallas Mavericks has made one of the most head-scratching trades in NBA history. A trade so lopsided that it makes me question the motives of the trade, quite frankly. Like, it's almost too good of a deal to be true for the Los Angeles Lakers. But all of my feelings about that trade aside, the Mavericks definitely came into this game against the Cleveland Cavaliers limping. And the Cavs showed no mercy. As I'm recording this video, the Cavs are up 60 points? That can't be right. I can't be doing the math right. 50 points. The Cavs are up about 50 points on the Dallas Mavericks, right? 38 plus 10. It's 138.90 with 3 minutes left. So they're up almost 50 points on the Dallas Mavericks. And look, this game was never close. Like 5 minutes in, the Cavs were up 20 points here. Cavs got 50 points in the first quarter, followed that up with 41 points in the second quarter. And at that point, the game was over. Some things that you love to see here for the Cavs. I would start with Sam Merrill going what did he go? 8 of 11 from 3. He's been needing to have a good night from 3-point. He has been just a bad shooter for whatever reason for most of this year. Him having a night like this, you're hoping sparks something bigger within him because he's been a sub 35% 3-point shooter, and you want Sam Merrill to be like a 38-40% 3-point shooter for him to stay on the floor and make sense with what you're doing as the Cavs. So it was nice to see Sam Merrill contribute and give you 24 off the bench. George Niang had a nice night. Ty Jerome had a pretty nice night. 24 minutes, 12 points, 2 of 3 from 3, 5 of 11 from the floor. Pretty good night from him. Max Strus started. Gave you 9 points, 2 of 4 from 3. Donovan Mitchell, 2 of 5, 12 points. Darius Garland had 17. Really thought Darius was playing excellent basketball in the first half of this game. Really smooth. Like, you could just, Darius Garland and Evan Mobley, they're both taking their leaps at the same time, which makes one harder to notice than the other. Because like we've been so focused and we talk so much about the Evan Mobley leap. And look, the Evan Mobley leap is here. 22 points, 11 rebounds in 24 minutes. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Evan Mobley has been capital H hooping the last few games. But yeah, he's averaging 22 at this point. Evan Mobley has been as advertised, or at least he's averaging 22 in his last few games. This has been the leap that everybody has been talking about, right? Coming off of a 16-point game from Atlanta, and then 22 in Miami. Evan has made the leap, and we have watched Evan make the leap and what that means for him to make the leap, and he deserves to be an all-star. I don't think we've talked enough about Darius Garland making that leap. And the thing is with Darius, he's the one player on this roster, him and Jared Allen, for whatever reason, even Cavs fans will take the slightest opening to get off all their horrible takes about. It's so weird with Darius, with some of these Cavs fans, where he'll have an off night And then all of a sudden, people want to act like they thought he was garbage and he's never going to be good, and the Cavs should trade him for like Brandon Ingram. Darius, I think he's taken a leap this year. We're watching him just be so comfortable and smooth as a facilitator. I think that's where that leap has happened. He's just such a smooth facilitator. If you need buckets, he'll get you buckets. When he's dropped 39 against Houston, 22 against Detroit, 26 against Atlanta on pretty good efficiency. Darius is evolving into that do-it-all. He can score. He can take a step back. He can facilitate your offense. He can make sure the basketball goes where it needs to type player. I really love how Darius's game has been evolving under Kenny Atkinson. I don't think people talk about that enough. But Darius had another smooth game here, was really pivotal in the Cavs, putting up 50 points in the first quarter of this basketball game. I thought Jarrett Allen was pretty good in this game too, 14 and 9 in 20 minutes. Most of these guys only played a little bit into the third quarter, so the total numbers aren't what you used to expecting, but considering they did this in a half of basketball, you have to be impressed. So here we are, right? The Cavs, I think they came off their slump stretch of the season, right? I remember talking about it even before the Oklahoma City game, when the Cavs were like still winning a bunch of these games. I thought that they weren't playing great basketball up until that point, right? I would say, when was that Pacers game? Yeah, I would say from January 12th to about January 25th, the Cavs were having more problems than they have experienced all season. And I think more people were concerned about the Cavs than they've ever been, because in that stretch, right, they go 3-5 in that stretch. And I think people were concerned about it. But again, it's not that you have a tough stretch that matters. Every basketball team this year, no matter how good they are, no matter who it is, right, the team that will eventually win a championship this year will have bad stretches during the season. So it's not worth it to panic just because you had a bad stretch. But the question is, how do you adjust? How do you make sure that a bad stretch doesn't turn into a bad portion of the season, doesn't turn into a bad month, doesn't turn into a bad 2 months, right? We went through this in November with the Cavs at a smaller scale. I would say what happened in January, probably the largest scale kind of rough stretch that they've had all season. Well, they lost to Houston. They come back versus Detroit. They win by a significant margin. Now, they're supposed to beat Detroit. Miami, again, another team they're supposed to beat, but they win by a significant margin. Atlanta, another team they're supposed to beat. All these teams dealing with either like the craziest trade situation you've ever heard of, or injuries, right? Detroit injuries, Atlanta injuries, Dallas, craziest trade situation. Same thing with Miami. And the Cavs took care of business. But in the stretch before the last Oklahoma City game, the Cavs were facing teams with similar problems, right? Tyrese Halliburton didn't play in most of those 2 games that they played against the Pacers, still struggled to beat them. And then they went into a big game versus Oklahoma City, got smacked. Now I feel much better about the Cavs going into this big game versus Boston because they're playing much better basketball, much smoother basketball. So no, I'm not saying the Cavs are the best team in the NBA simply because they beat a couple of teams that don't have great records, don't have the best injury luck right now. But I am saying that this does make me feel much better about them being able to prove that when they go up and play the Boston Celtics on national TV on the first night of a back-to-back. Because now I feel a lot better about the style and the quality of basketball that they're playing. It feels like it's up the Cavs standard. Now, some of that has to do with getting healthy, right? The Cavs were missing Caris LeVert. Seems like it matters when Caris is and is not out there. It definitely hurts the Cavs bench depth. So that's something to consider when we're talking about how good this team could be in the playoffs. How much do you trust Caris LeVert to be who he is? Because it seems like if Caris can't show up or if Caris ain't healthy, that does matter to this team. All in all, I'm pretty happy with how the Cavs have responded to this tough stretch. And also, I didn't get a chance to talk about it because I was in Mobile, didn't have a bunch of opportunities to record videos like I do when I'm at home. But the Cavs have sent 3 All-Stars. Maybe they can get a 4th one in. But 3 All-Stars, Darius Garland, Donovan Mitchell, and Evan Mobley. And I think all 3 of those guys are deserved. Donovan Mitchell, still a fantastic player, still the best scorer on this team. Evan Mobley is making an argument to be the best overall player on this team, but I don't think he's quite there yet offensively. Like, for me to put Evan above Donovan, I got to feel pretty good about Evan's ability to on command get you a bucket. And right now, I don't feel where I need to feel with him on that to take it there. But still, Evan, I think he is making an argument for second best player of the team, but he would be the second best player on any other team. But the Cavs also have Darius Garland. And Darius Garland has been hooping at such a high level, it makes it hard to think that he's not the second best player on this team. I do think Evans at number 2, Darius is at number 3 on this team, but it's not really a distinction I think matters that much, to be honest with you. I feel like all 3 of these guys are on similar tiers, or at least working towards being on similar tiers, and they fit so well together. They play so well together. Kenny Atkinson uses these guys so well together that we're starting to see the fruits of this team's labor as far as their patience was for this team. So Cavs now 40-9, 40-win team already before the All-Star break. They have a couple of big games coming up, and they get a chance to prove that they are, in fact, the best team in basketball, right? Because that's what we're all playing for, right? To stay at the end of the year, you are the best team in basketball. Let's look at some of the notable upcoming games for the Cavaliers, right? So the Cavs play Tuesday against the Boston Celtics. Obviously, anytime the Cavs go up against the Celtics, it's going to be a big deal because that's kind of the measuring stick for everybody in the league, because the Celtics are the best team that has also won a championship very recently. You get Detroit again at Detroit. Then you get Washington. Minnesota will be interesting. And then you get New York on Friday, February 21st on ESPN. And then you have this nice little stretch here, right? You get Memphis, Orlando, and Boston, right? So, right, I think that's after the All-Star break. The Cavs are going to have some tests, so they can't come out slow after this All-Star break. But if they finish this they finish this half of the season, not really a half of the season, but they finish before the All-Star break pretty strong here, they could potentially be a 45 win basketball team by the All-Star break, which, I mean, nobody expected Cavs to be at that level of good this year. But 40-9 are your Cleveland Cavaliers. It's still really damn good. The questions are, will they make a trade? Do they need to bring in an extra body? And really, like, the biggest question I have about this Cavs team is this: how much do you trust the bench in the playoffs? Because the bench, being as good as they are right now, is a big part to why this Cavs team with similar personnel is 40-9. And my question and concern, I'm not sure if where I land on this, but my question and concern about the Cavs is, do you trust some of these pieces that we're kind of relying on to help our bench get there in the postseason, right? How do we feel about Ty Jerome in the postseason? I feel pretty good about Ty. I'm a little bit iffy on Karis LeVert. I'm a little bit iffy on Dean Wade, given that we've seen those two disappear in the postseason. I'm very iffy about George Niang, right? Like, I would love to have this bench be as powerful as they are, but feel better about at least one of those roles because I've seen George Niang disappear in the playoff series. That can't happen in the playoffs. Karis LeVert, same thing there. And who was Dean Wade, right? Like, him being our only wing, him being somebody who's easily prone to injury. That's the stuff that makes me nervous about this team in the playoffs. But other than that, man, this Cavs team is still a true championship contender and a threat to win it all this year for sure in my eyes. But looking forward to the Boston game. Looking forward to playing Boston in Cleveland on national TV. That's what's next for the Cavaliers. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have an even better night.